Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Online Darts Fallout Bar as we have come to the end of night 7 of the 2025 PDC Grand Slam of Darts. And a happy Friday to you all. Dan Simpson here, joining you from up in Teesside. I am joined by the Wales correspondent, Carwyn Evans. How are you, my friend?
Oh, very good, thanks. Yeah, a two enjoyable game of darts. As in, I know the scoreline doesn't suggest that maybe, but I thought we had a real good night of darts and sort of all four players, I guess, doing what we expected. But yeah, better than the weather. It's been horrendous in Wales today. As in, I was afraid it was a sign of tears for Gezi Price, but no.
Oh, is it still raining? Have you still got rain over there? Have you?
Oh yeah, we got floods and it's quite bad in some areas just outside Cardiff here.
I think we've got through most of that. And up here, so what happened today? It sort of stopped raining overnight and then immediately became unbearably cold. Like, you know, sort of it hasn't really been cold yet this year. And all of a sudden today, it just plummeted. And by God, it's cold. And I have allowed the Simpsons to have the heating on this evening. I've broken in there. They've celebrated the annual turning on of the thermostat as we've finally cranked up the heating.
Forget Christmas lights, it's all about the heating.
Yeah, absolutely. Bloody right. Yeah, I've managed to hold off for as long as possible. Evening, folks, in the chat room. There's quite a few other names around Bob and Shelty and James and Scott. We're early. I think this is about the earliest. So I did put in our little WhatsApp chat, and I think I was pretty much bang on.
Yeah.
Whereas when I thought we were going early, and what did I say? I said that they would be wrapped up by 9:15. And I almost got it on to the minute. I think I wasn't far off at all. So it is nice and early, especially pleasing for a Friday. But it wasn't a bad night tonight. I think the thing is with the Grand Slam is, and I think it becomes a bit jarring at points because throughout that early stage you become quite accustomed to a bit of chaos and some surprise and strange things happen and some rogue results. And then you sort of get to this point, and it's sort of like it starts to go to plan a bit, doesn't it? You know, because the big boys are playing, and they all start, and they're over a longer format, and it's harder to sustain, and it just starts to go to plan a little bit, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's what we especially saw in the first game was over sort of a best of 11, best of 15, Ricky was in the game, but then that extra push after that, as in Gezi Price just took it away from him. And I'm not going to say Ricky's concentration dropped, but his levels dropped the longer the match went. And I think that's the problem when there's such a jump in format, because in 3 rounds, they've gone from best of 9 to best of 31. And it's
huge, isn't it? Yeah.
It is a huge, and it's sort of, obviously, we want to see the best players playing, and the longer format does tend to lean in favour of those because they've got the ability of not panicking if they go 2 or 3 behind, but they've also got the cushion. If they go 2 or 3 in front, they just put their foot down and accelerate and run away with it. But no, I enjoyed both games. Moments in both from all players, I think, that they can also be quite happy with how things have gone.
Yeah, so I suppose starting as the night started, that first match, I think, again, I think it's doing both of them a disservice to say that it went to plan. But I think one of the concerns that I had going into this game was whether or not that Ricky Evans felt like he'd sort of reached his ceiling in the event, and whether he would just be happy to be here tonight, and that whether or not Ricky Evans would turn up sort of convinced that he could really push Gezi Price. And I fear that sort of happened from the off. I think that Ricky was there to have a good time and enjoy the experience of playing in a quarterfinal against Gezi Price, but wasn't really up for it.
No, I agree with you there, and I think it's sort of, especially as well because Ricky beaten him in the group. He was like, right, I've beaten him this week because then I can just enjoy this now. There's no There's no pressure, nothing. And I think actually had the draw not been where you play the same person from a group again, potentially, you may have seen a different Rick Evans. But it just felt like he was there for a good time, as in obviously trying to win a darts game, not taking anything away from him. But there wasn't that level of concentration, maybe at key legs that you need if you're going to compete with the likes of Geraint Price, because as friendly as he might be with you before the game and after the game, for the entirety of that game, he pretty much hates you and will do everything to beat you. And you sort of saw that in sort of the exchanges between them, where Ricky was trying to be pally and all that, tap of the shoulder, fist bump and what have you, but Price just wasn't having any of it. And even I think he mocked the celebration as he was walking off in one of the intervals. So yeah, I think it was just a case of Ricky satisfied and delighted with how his week's gone, and Price, on the other hand, on a mission with his eye on winning the entire tournament.
Yeah, I think, and I'll jump onto another point in a minute, but just while we're on that one, I think between the two players, one of them, like for one of them, losing this match meant he'd had a good week, and for the other one, losing this match was a catastrophe. Like it was a catastrophe, and I think that we saw that mindset from the off, and I think from the off is where I wanted to sort of go, because we have, and we'll come to the second match later on, but over this long format, it's so. Wayne actually broke it down. I think it was Wayne Mardle, perhaps. Might have been Dan Dawson that broke it down. When you go behind early and you are the underdog, it's so hard in this long format. When Luke Littler goes down 4-0, goes in at the break 5-0 down, like it doesn't faze him because he knows he can come and rattle this off. He knows. But when you are the underdog and you have to stay as close as you can. And when you slip to 4-0 and you go into that first break 4-1 down, and I know that there was a break of throw just going into that break, but still, I think you go to the break 4-1 back. You're so far away that if you can break your opponent's throw, then it doesn't sort of get you anywhere. The next time after that Evans broke Price's throw, it was to pull it back to 7-4, and you just think, well, it's you've done all that work. It's so difficult at that level to break your opponent's throw. Then it sort of gets you nowhere. And it was all done at the very, very that lack of concentration. Who's up for it? Who's come out ready to play this match? And he just couldn't recover from that. I don't think, Evans.
No, and I think the problem is that he didn't win any of the mini sessions, and to win the game, obviously you've got to win a mini session or two. To beat somebody like Price, I think you've got to win them 4-1, 5-0, because he's got that ability of reeling. Well, we saw it at the start. He reeled off 4 legs without breaking sweat, and you're almost already thinking, right, how many legs will Ricky get? Even though Price has to win another 12 himself, it was almost a case of just make it respectable and try and keep yourself in the game. And I know he did get it back to sort of 2 legs deficit, but Price always seemed in control and never sort of thought, oh, he's going to let this slip or he's going to get back onto a level playing field. It was always a case of, I expected Ricky to make a mistake more than Price, even though when he was chasing.
Yeah, I think a lot of this game was sort of won with mindset, and rather than darts at the board, and I think darts at the board was sort of secondary. And I just think Gezi Price came to this match almost assuming he's going to win isn't disrespectful, but like knowing he was like sort of prepared to win, and he wasn't really thinking about losing. And if something happened during the game, then he would deal with it. But I just think from leg number 1, he fully expected to win this game, and I think Ricky was trying his luck. But again, it was a fairly entertaining game. The Ricky Evans only put two legs together, or two, back-to-back legs once in the game, and that was, I think, for 7-4 and 7-5, and he's still a breakdown at that point. Whereas there was at least two occasions in the match where Gezzy's done three in a row, and it's either hold break hold or break hold break, and it just kicked him so far ahead that Ricky just couldn't. And don't get me wrong, Gezzy played at a good level. Ricky would have had to be throwing 15 dart legs to take those breaks off him, and he's had a good week, but he's not quite there at the minute. He sort of probably overachieved to get where he had.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I'd also say as well, at the moment, the battles that these two are having, they're not in the same league. As in, Ricky's focus has to be the top 32, where Gezzy's targeting top 4, world number 1, as in he's got his eyes on a very different trophy to Ricky Evans at the moment. But I do think, from Ricky Evans' point of view, this now has to be the benchmark. This is what's worked to get him into a TV quarterfinal. This is the approach he needs to take. And I know it won't always happen, because sometimes you get drawn out against Geraint Price in the first round or whatever. But what he cannot do is continue to be that joker that we all laugh and love watching, but actually realise that he can be a top 32 in the world player and capitalise on that when the going's good. Because that's what you often see with these players, is they have a good run, they get into the top 32, and it's harder then to drop out of it once you're in there. Getting into that top 32 is the challenge, so he just needs to aim for that, and opportunities will open for him then.
Yeah, 100%. And you're right in that the goals of both of these players are very different. Ricky Evans' target for the next year, the next 12 months, is to qualify for and be allowed to play in as many TV events as possible. Geraint Price's goal is to win as many TV events, and it is that's the difference in them. Is one of their aims is to be there, and the other one's aim is to win it. So and for that reason, I think the game sort of went exactly as you would expect. We do have Phil Barr's been busy all night tonight. He's in the venue and he has spoken to Gezzy Price. We've got a bit of a clip of an interview. I haven't heard it or seen it yet because we came straight on here after the match. So let's have a listen and see what Mr. Price made of his victory.
The idea of the fourth was right at the beginning. I won't turn up unless I think I'm going to win. It was what I thought was an half-decent group, and slipped up first game, so they give me a kick up the backside, and since then I played pretty decent.
How confident are you in that semi-final, knowing that every time you've got to a semi-final of the Grand Slam, you've always gone on and lifted the trophy so far?
To be honest, I didn't even know that, so it's good to know, but I am a little bit superstitious, so I think that is nice to know.
Right, so question number 1. Do you believe that he didn't know that?
It's as in, he's very meticulous in his ways, isn't it? It's hard to imagine somebody not mentioning that to him. Just be like, oh, you do know. Every time you made the last 4, that trophy's gone back to South Wales. But he's got a very good poker face as Geraint Price, isn't he? And I say he's always got a good one. In interviews, he does, as in when things are going his way, he's good at pretending. But yeah, it's a very good stat to have in your locker if you do or do not know it.
No, it's certainly going into fact now. And again, it's going to be very tough. And we'll come to the semi-final in a moment. It's going to be incredibly tough. There remain, well, the very most talented darts players in the world all remain in this tournament at the minute. I think, but like I sort of think that, or I'm not against the theory that Geraint Price winning this tournament wouldn't be a really good and positive thing for darts right now, because I think there's an awful lot of Luke chat, and coming into the World Championships, as we haven't had a brilliant year from Michael van Gerwen, and Peter Wright has slipped away a bit, and Gary Anderson's not quite at it, and some of the other and it forces the narrative between the the various different media outlets to do lots and lots of Lukeage, like loads and loads of, and I think if somebody else picks a big pot up this close, it forces just that different narrative going into it, doesn't it? It forces people to think about alternative winners of the World Championships. So, and I think, and I look at who's left that isn't called Luke, and I think, well, he's as likely as any of them, isn't he? So I'm not against it, because I think it could really put the cat amongst the pigeons.
Oh, definitely, and I think it'd be good just because pre-Grand Slam, all the narrative was, Humphries has to retain it to stay in world number one, or Littler will win it and he overtakes him as world number one, and let's check a grenade in there and Gavin Price wins it, and nobody knows what happens then because nobody's thought about it. It's all been Luke v Luke.
Exactly, and most people don't know the answer to the question. Well, what happened to who was world number one? And that is because it's so much Luke chat, and I do think it's like Lukeage. I'm keeping that. I'm going to. If you hear that anyway, if you see anybody tweeting that, like raise the alarm. You
heard it dictionary.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Lukeage, the overuse of exclusively focusing on Littler and Humphries in darts media. Right, we move on. We move on to game number 2. And I mean, this was a funny old game, because if we look at the scoreline at the end, I'll say, yep, that's pretty much what I thought. If you look at the score at the first break, I'll say, yep, that's what I thought. But there was just a very strange period in the middle, was there not? Where it just started to look a little bit edgy.
Yeah, Michael Smith walked off at the second break, and I don't know what he told himself, but it was probably the best team talk he's ever given himself, because he came back in that third session a different player. And you just thought, no, it can't, surely. Because when he got it back to 7-all, and I think he missed the bull, didn't he, for the 1-6-4, and then arguably the most important 1-3-8 in darting history, because it started, was it 6 legs on the bounce, I think, for Luke Humphries, and it just took the game away from him.
It did. It completely spun the momentum, didn't it? And I do think so. I did catch. I briefly caught, and I didn't catch a lot of it because, to be honest, the last dart goes in, and I run through into this room, and I start plugging things in and clicking stuff, But I did briefly catch Luke's interview where he talked about the fact that he thought that leg where they're both on 9s had really distracted him. I think because he'd watched Michael do like exactly what Michael van Gerwen had done, and he missed the double 12. And he'd said he had actually literally said, like, well, this is my chance to do what they'd had a bit of crack on stage, and obviously that first visit, and I think he had maybe a bit of an adrenaline rush, and it had all got a bit much. And I think, and he said at the end, he had distracted him, and he just lost his focus for a few legs. And Michael Smith, what I will say to. And I'll come back to the sort of the end of the Luke thing, but I think is a huge step for Michael Smith. Like, I genuinely believe, 16-8 to Luke Humphries in a quarterfinal to the world number 1. There is no disgrace, in that whatsoever. Michael Smith has been, if nothing but consistent throughout this entire, his tournament average, like his average has essentially stayed the same for the whole tournament. Like, he found a level on the first day and kept it for the whole week. And that has been his biggest problem, is that he hasn't been able to, because I think once you find a level and you can stay there and you can be consistent there, it's from that point that you can do the work to build on it. But when you are constantly, up, down, peak, trough, not knowing what is going to come out your hand, not knowing what to expect from your performance, you've got nothing to build on. You haven't got a foundation. And I think he's really establishing a foundation here.
Oh, definitely. And I think one thing I noticed this evening especially is that his treble hitting was good. He was hitting the trebles, but when he was throwing for doubles, it was very erratic. And there was one leg he was on 85, and he pinged the treble 15 with the first ad, and then his first ad for tops was closer to the number 20 on the outer ring on the outer ring of the board, and then the third ad was in between the treble and the double. And if I throw two darts like that at tops, I'm frustrated. But for a professional to be that far away from the mark, I think that's what's cost him a lot of legs tonight, is his wayward darts at a double. But definitely positive.
And we saw that yesterday, didn't we? We did see that for and I know that Dobie was just as bad, but it was the pair of them, wasn't it? The pair of them were at it last night, and that was still there in Michael Smith's game today. But I do believe that we have seen the shoots, just firing out of the Michael Smith resurgence. I think I think the World Championships will come too early this year. But it gives me great confidence that when we get to, if you like, let's call it the new season, the next round of Players' Championship events, and we start at PC number 1, I sort of think I expect a better year next year than this year, and I think he's got something to build on, which is really, really positive, because it's been a shame to see him slide down as quickly as he has.
Oh, definitely, and I think he should sort of be chuffed with the fight back he proved tonight, because not many people can claw their way back against Luke Humphries from 7-3 to 7-all, and I actually think then the 15th leg, I know I'm going back to it, that kills the game for him, as in and the fact it comes just before a break, so he's going off that stage thinking, I've played really well in that session, I've got myself back into it, and then he's taken 1-3-8 out, and I think that eats away at him during the break. They come back on stage, Humphries wins the next session 5-0, and Smith, all his hard work just disappears. But I think he should, a bit like Ricky Evans, be happy with how his week's gone, as in him and Luke, again, they're at very different battles at the moment, and Smith's battle has to be just to sort of find that confidence again, because when he's confident, that those tops fly in, and there's no question, and he's hitting 100 averages for fun. So it's just fine-tuning, and I think, next year could be a big year for him. Yeah,
I do think this next year, if you'd have asked me to, think about the prospects of Michael Smith, next year, even 2 or 3 weeks ago, I have a different view on it now. I genuinely do. I have a different view on what I think next year could look like. It's just there's a few mentions in the chat room that we did have to have blood on the stage this evening. It was blood on the carpets. Yeah, dark points are sharp. Like, you need to be careful with them, especially if you're going to start waving them around your head in frustration. But no, and I suppose that the final bit on that was that, other than a little sort of, a couple of legs of distraction, like, it was once again, like, the last 2 games, we've seen Luke Humphries average 108.5 and 105. Like, and this is, don't forget, over an increasingly longer format as well. So, the format is increasing in length, and he's maintaining that, well over 100 average. And I do think, it's not time for semi-final predictions right now, but I'm quite excited about seeing Owen Price against Luke Humphries. Like, that is, and I think the biggest, what will make the game is it needs Gezi to turn up at his best, doesn't it? It needs him to not and that's I suppose that the concern is, whilst he's been winning matches, we've seen, from Gezi today, we saw the 99 average, which is better than we have been seeing. Earlier we've seen a 96 and a 98, and we've seen a 95, and then he needs to find that next level if he's going to compete with Luke Humphries. He's got to come out better.
Oh, definitely, especially when you sort of remember that Luke Humphries isn't 100% fit, and that Mandy's been working her magic. But yeah, because we also know Humphries will average somewhere in between 103 and 110. That's sort of the norm with Humphries. Can Price match that over 25, 30 legs of darts? That'll be the test. And I think a lot of it will come down to how the match starts. If Price can get 2 or 3 legs early, that he's potentially ahead of that first break, he'll be up for it. If he finds himself 4-1 down, it could be a case of not him giving up, but him just going through the motions and nothing more than that.
Yes, she came and she gave without taking, and he sent her away. I say 2 more days of Mandy's magic, and by Sunday he could be on another plane altogether, couldn't he? He could be averaging 118 if she keeps going at this rate. Right, we haven't, folks, I'm afraid for you just yet, managed to get Luke Humphries' interview into the back end of our system here, but that is again probably just because we got wrapped up so early and we were straight on here within a few minutes. So Phil will be editing and filming and talking to Luke at the minute. But as ever, all the interviews, as they have been for the whole week this week, all of the interviews from today will be uploaded in full to the Online Darts YouTube channel. So make sure to check that out once you've finished with us here. And again, a lot earlier than usual. I'm here for it. I might make lost orders at the pub at this rate. I've never got through a fallout bar and still been able to nip through the village for last orders. Like, we've never mind.
Fall back into the pub now.
Yeah, this is marvelous news. Right, so predictions tomorrow in the chat room. Make sure you get your predictions in. We are obviously tomorrow night sees the second 2 quarterfinals, exactly the same format as you saw tonight, best of 31 legs, which is the first of 16 for those of you who aren't talented with mathematics. And we will open tomorrow with Danny Noppert. And Danny Noppert is and I'm still for it because what a cracking job to get to the quarterfinal. Lucas Venig. Can we see Lucas Venig upset somebody else, Carwin, or is Danny? I mean, what do you think?
I think that Danny Noppert is playing too well for the upset to happen, and that's no disrespect to Lucas Venig. He's taken some big scalps. He's done fantastically well to get this far, and he's sort of earned the right to have this shot in the quarterfinal. I just get the impression, similar to both matches tonight, you've got one player who believes he can still win the tournament, and you've got another player who will be delighted of not only got out of the groups, but got to the quarterfinal. So I'm going to say that Danny Noppert wins 16-8.
Oh, that makes it hard for me not to be boring. I'm almost right there with you. I think. Before this tournament started, I picked a semi-final, which I think I still think I'm right. I would think I was right before the tournament, and I find it very difficult this year to not, especially when the draws break the way that they sometimes do at the moment with where the rankings are and the seedings would go, to not keep picking Danny Noppert to win darts matches. And the reason being is Danny Noppert consistently wins darts matches. It's become a real habit for him, especially this year. I actually think he's getting better and better and better. He's already made 3 televised semi-finals this year. This would be a 4th. There are very, very few people that aren't called Luke that can say that. And for that reason, and for the length, the extension in length of match, I have to say that I think Danny Noppert's going to win. Lucas Fenig has, as well, for one, completely saved his tour card in a week.
Yeah.
That he was given little chance of retaining that tour card at all, and in a week he has comfortably secured a tour card, which I think that's brilliant, because I think he's a cracking player, and I genuinely think that the tour is better for having him on it. I think that there'll be lads that miss out on a tour card that don't offer as much to the tour as he does. So I'm pleased that he's managed. I'm really pleased for him that he's managed to do that, and he's done it in spectacular fashion. He's done it on TV, which is in the Last Chance Saloon. He's taken the last opportunity and he's done it. But I do think that the sort of the dream comes to an end, and I was hovering around the exact same score. And the only real question is to not be boring and say the same thing. Do I go one more or one less? And I think I'll go one less. So I will go 16-7.
That's how I'd have gone if you'd have gone first.
Yeah, it's around there, isn't it? And
I can't see him winning 9, but I can see him winning 7 or 8.
Yeah, looking into the chat room, I think we probably got some level of consensus. I think Dan Lucas has got Noppert winning 16-11. He's been a bit kind of as Be Kind Rewind that's got 16-14. I mean, that'd be some game. We won't be on as early tomorrow if that's
no
the
chance.
Case. Phil has gone Noppert too strong 16-8, which is where we are. Bob has gone Noppert 16-12. James has gone 16-9. Noppert, I'm sure I saw. Yes, I did. Andy has gone 16-13. Interesting. Yeah, Noppert had a low average in the first game. I just think it's a long format, this, and over that length, he'll have it up. And Shelty's gone Noppert 16-9. So we've got, other than a bit of a rogue one, and I tell you what, he might make fools of us all, but Andy's gone a bit rogue. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a nice game to watch. I think, people talk about the entertainment or the character that Danny Noppert offers and whether or not it's suitable for a Premier League. I think he's a cracking watch, to be honest, and I don't really get the criticism. So
his darts to the talking, though, doesn't need to.
I mean, what do they want him to do?
Yeah.
Do they want him to do a type 5 stand-up routine before he comes to the stage? I genuinely don't know what they expect of him, because then what happens is, somebody who is, I think, probably similar in a lot of ways in terms of their natural character in Luke Humphreys, and he gets encouraged to sort of give a bit, and he does it, and he'll do his best to try and do a bit and say a bit and do a bit in interviews, and then he gets a load of stick for it. So I think sometimes you can't win, can you? If you keep your mouth shut, if you keep your mouth shut, you're boring. If you open your mouth, you're a knobhead. Like it's very difficult. And I think your darts do the talking, and I think that's what Danny does. It's what he's always done. Game number 2 tomorrow. If you're not looking forward to this, I'm really sorry. It's a tough way to find out. You're just staying into darts, I'm afraid. You're not a darts fan. It's a game that we've said, I said it earlier this year, you are going to see this match regularly at the back end of TV tournaments for the next 10 years. Get used. If you get bored of seeing the same players compete with each other, maybe you shouldn't watch tomorrow, because you're going to see this one a lot. Now, it's, I suppose, a bit of a question, because, when they do play each other, the last one, I suppose, whilst they did meet on a Euro Tour event, the last time these two met on stage was at the match play. and it was a cracking game, and Littler got the best of him. It was over a similar length format. That was first to 17. This is first to 16. Do you think it's repeat or revenge, Carwin? Is it Littler again, or is Rock going to get the chance?
I think it's repeat. I'd love it to be revenge because I'm a big fan of Josh Rock, and I just feel like the energy and the bounce and everything he brings to that stage is unbelievable, and it's what we need. And then we need somebody different coming on and doing what Josh Rock does. It's one of those games, though, where Littler could win 16-4 or he could win 16-15. But that's not me thinking Josh Rock plays badly. I just think Luke Littler plays at a level where only he can play. But I'm gonna not say 16-4 because I'm not that crazy. But yeah, Littler wins 16-11, and maybe something similar to what we saw in the Michael game tonight is that Josh gets on level terms around 8-8 maybe, and then Littler just finds that other gear that he's got and runs away with it.
So, do you know, I was just having a look back there, you know, and reminded it like what a game that when they met at the match play earlier this year, we saw 29 180s between them. Littler averaged 107.5. Josh Rock averaged 104. Rock took out that 170 and Littler took the 141. And I was literally reminded of like, if we get anything like that, then God, it's exciting. But I think it will be closer than you think.
I hope so. But
I'm really struggling to make a case over that length for Josh Rock to beat Luke Littler. I think it will be 16-13 is where I'm going to go. But the extra little prediction that I'm going to put on is that Josh Rock will take the first break of throw. Josh Rock will go 2-0 up. There's a cheeky little sideline that I think that I do think Josh will come out fired up. I think that Luke sometimes, well, not sometimes. I think he over these long format games, he does often start a bit slow, and I think he sometimes, whether subconscious or not, maybe it is subconscious, but I think sometimes it's because he knows he can. You know, he knows that he can catch it back up, and he doesn't need to come at it, you know, wild. But I think Josh Rock will. I think he'll come in fired up. I think he'll have memories of that game at the match play, and I think he sees that as a missed opportunity.
Because didn't Rock go 5-0 up in the match play?
I'm
sure he ran.
Is that the game? Yes, he did. Josh Rock went 5-0 up, and he was 5-0 ahead, and he played brilliantly. You know, he just and all it was. You know, by the end of that, it wasn't like he tanked all of a sudden. You know, as I say, 105 average with a 170 checkout, and it was just simply that all of a sudden Luke Littler went in for a break, came back out, and decided, you know, what I averaged there. 98. I better go and average 117 then for 2 sessions like that. And that's what happened. He just absolutely smashed it. But yeah, so that's where I think I'm at. I'm quite comfortable there. 16-13. Let's have a little look in the chat room, and then after we've done predictions, do not go away because I have an extra little surprise for you all, because we have the hardest working man in darts has been working hard as ever. And even though we got on nice and early tonight and it was all still a bit hectic, we do have a Luke Humphreys clip to come to. So we'll get through the rest of your predictions and then we'll cycle back a little bit to game number 2 and see what Luke Humphreys had to say about his victory. Right, let's have a quick look in the chat room. In fact, I can get them on the screen. Look at that. That's clever, isn't it? Where are we? Where's the first one? Right. Andy's in nice and early. He hasn't gone rogue with this one. He's stuck and he's been sensible. Littler 16-10. Be Kind Rewind has gone Littler winning 16-9. I think we're going to see a lot of the same in here. Bob's gone 16-11 for Littler. Shelty's in with a 16-10 for Luke Littler. Phil, Littler's a man on a mission for the number one spot. Takes it over the line 16-13. That's no prediction. Scott Littler 16-14 from Scott. James has gone 16-11. Littler, I think we've only got a one rock prediction so far. That'll score. 16-10 Littler. Andy's gone. Rock needs a 5-0 first session again. I do think I predict he takes the first breaker throw. He will be 2-0 up. I am absolutely convinced that he will. But then I do think after that, Mr. Littler will take control. Right, let's cycle back a little bit to earlier in the show when we were talking about game number 2 this evening, which saw Luke Humphries defeat Michael Smith. And we've now got a little clip from Luke Humphries' post-match interview.
Yeah, honestly, I think this is the best I've played for a long time. But I feel, when I won the Grand Prix and the Grand Slam and the Players' Championships, I feel like I'm playing better now. The last couple of weeks, couple of months, I'm a better player now than I've ever been. And I feel much more crucial. The doubles set for that, like I said, that leg. They're much better, big combination finishes, high scoring. Yeah, if I can just keep it all together and keep performing like this, then it's down to a really good performance to knock me out. And for me, this is the important thing for me going into the World Championships, because I feel full of confidence. And maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I didn't feel like I could be a world champion this year, but now I do. I believe I can do it again.
Yeah, it's nice to hear some confidence, isn't it? It's not a little bit. Yeah. I know he's carrying a bit of an injury, but I've my full faith is in Mandy to get him through that. But back to when you're averaging 108.5, following it back with 105, it's difficult to not have that level of confidence, especially when you're averaging that. These aren't the race to fives at the beginning of the tournament. He is consistently playing very well. I'm not sure I agree with that this is the best he's ever played, or that this is I don't know how much of that is trying to convince himself, because I know he's or I seem to have seen him playing an awful lot better than I've seen just lately. But yeah, he's definitely at it, and I really think that Gezi gonna have to throw the kitchen sink at him, and even then it might not be enough on Sunday. I do think Gezi's gonna have to give it everything, and even still it might be not quite what he needs to get him over the line.
I agree with you there. I think at the moment there is a gap in Humphries and Price's game, and it's probably the biggest gap that's been between them for a while when they've faced each other. As in, now I don't know what bookies are saying, but I just feel like Humphries will be a heavy favourite, quite a heavy favourite in my opinion. I don't think it'll be as close as it could be. And I quite like that from Humphries, because obviously over the last year, all the talk has been about a certain Mr. Littler passing him in the rankings and overtaking him as world number 1. So it's good to see him come out and say, actually, I can win the world championship. I think we need more of that from him, just so that he becomes the story a bit more, maybe than just the second or third page in the newspaper.
Interestingly, just because we're nothing but consistent on this channel, Phil's just slipped his predictions in, has gone 16-8 Noppy in there as well. So we are nothing but not consistent on this channel, and we've not even discussed that in the chat room in advance. We haven't WhatsApped in advance to make sure we're all on the same page with that one. Right, folks, I'm not quite sure how, but we've managed to make 2 games last over 45 minutes, which I think is quite an achievement, or potentially just a confirmation of how much crap we can talk. It's just
Well,
how
I
we
did.
now. But thank you all for joining us, and I appreciate we're at a slightly different time to normal in that tonight we're actually wrapping up a little bit before we would normally be getting started. But I am going to take advantage of that by probably watching a bit of TV and having a glass of wine. Carwyn, thank you very much as ever for joining us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and it's certainly if you've got anything exciting planned for your Saturday, then please, even though the weather's crap, please do enjoy it. And everybody in the chat room, thank you very much for coming and joining us for your crack and banter and predictions and everything else. We have been Online Darts. This has been the Fallout Bar, and we will see you tomorrow. Good night.